It started in ancient and the pre-Spanish era. It is believed that the first inhabitant of the Philippines arrived over many thousands of years ago. It is commonly thought that they migrated over a land of bridge, which existed at the time from the Asian mainland. The next known inhabitation is when the Negreto or the Eta arrived in the islands. However, they were driven back by the several waves of immigrants from the Indonesia, only to be followed by the maritime of people of the Malayan Islands. There are four examples of the Philippine indigenous art. So first we have the sculpture or carving, the second is the pottery, the third is the weaving, and the last is the physical ornaments. So let's start with the sculpture. Sculpture is a three-dimensional artwork created by shaping or combining hard materials, typically stone and such as marble, metal, glass, or wood, or plastic materials such as clay, textile, polymers, and softer materials. And also, carving is one of the technique used in the sculpture. So, example for this is the Ifugao sculpture. So, first is the bulul. Bulul are carved anito, figures of Ifugaos. This represents their ancestral spirit and the granary gods. Seated Ifugao, bulul at the conclusion of the annual Ifugao harvest ritual, bululs placed in the rice granaries are considered guardians of the harvest. Next is the Sarimanok. Shown above are the most well-known of the old design, the Sarimanok. The figure represents a fowl with wings, feathered tail, and a head decorated with the ornaments and scroll painted in motif of leaves, spirals, and feather-like forms. It usually stands on a fish and another hangs on its beak. The wooden figure usually perch atop of the bamboo pole among decorative flags during the weddings or the other festival occasion. Next is the Hagabi. Hagabi is a traditional large ceremonial benches carved for wealthy Ifugao families as a symbol of wealth, power, and prestige. The bench serves as a symbol of prestigious Hagabi feast, in which is the carving of the bench mark in the beginning of the celebration. In the past, only the wealthy called Kadangyans were allowed to have the Hagabi, which is used inside their home. So let's move to our next art, the pottery. Pottery are the objects that are first shaped of a wet clay, then hardened by baking. Pottery includes both decorative and practical items such as bowl, vases, dishes, and lamps. Pottery in the Philippines varies in the forms and function. The forms of the pots are directly influenced by the function of the pots and the tradition of the community, local area. So the first example of the pottery in the Philippines is palayok. Palayok is a clay pot used as a traditional food preparation container in the Philippines. Palayok is a Tagalog word in other parts of the country, especially in the Visayas. It is called a kulun. Smaller sized pots are referred to as anglit. Neighboring Indonesia, Malaysia refers to such vessel as periuk. So, second is the manunggul jar. The manunggul jar is a secondary burial jar excavated from the Neolithic burial site in the Manugul Cave, Tabon Caves at Lipon Point in the Palawan, Philippines. It dates from 1890s to 710 BC, and the two prominent figures in the top handle of its cover represents the journey of the soul to the afterlife. So, the next art is weaving. Weaving means to make cloth and other objects. Threads or strands of materials are passed under and over each other. Weaving in the Philippines has different forms and functions and materials. They also vary in designs, techniques used. Most of the common forms of weaving in the Philippines are the form of hats, mats, bags, baskets, and textiles, clothes, and blankets. The example of weaving in the Philippines is malong. Malong bearing ochre designs. So, the Maranao called their ornamental designs ukir, a general term for both the scroll and the geometric form. So, ukir is a datu. The scroll is the dominant feature in the men work composed of various spiral forms. In a contrast of the zigzag and angular forms are dominating motif in a woman geometric arm. So, we have the last example, the physical ornaments. So, physical ornamentation can be categorized to three areas, specifically the use of the traditional costume, jewelries, and tattoos. The designs are depending on the location, user, and the function of the ornament. So, we have the first example is the Bontok Warriors Ritual Head Hunting Necklace. So, the next example is the Filipino Bawisak Earrings. It is a traditional Ifugao tribe bed and shell Bawisak earrings. The bottom shell design has been described as either representing butterflies or a certain item of a male generative anatomy. So, and the next is the Ifugao Warriors Silver Linglingo earring pair and pendants. And the next is the traditional Filipino tattoo.